I'm going to talk a bit on managing time and managing learning linked in with time, okay? So that's definitions, a bit of background, ways to make managers' time more productive, and that's the key stuff. Prioritising, goal setting, they're some of the ways how you do it, and analysing the way you work. I'd be quite happy to put 100 or even 500 Fiji dollars on the table, and I'll show most managers waste up to half their time. No one's ever taken me up on that bet yet, and so on. And what you do is get people to record over a 2-week period what they do in, say, 20-minute or half an hour intervals, and then you look at what they've done and is it adding value to the organisation? Is it something the customer would pay for in the private sector? So we'll talk a bit more about that when we get there. And then managing learning. Okay, so there's a bit of a definition there. Time management is really self-management of time. It's how you handle the time. We've got 24 hours in a day, and you've got to handle it the right way. So self is you. Time is the occurrence of event after another one. Management is juggling all the competing things you have. And you're going to have this when you're doing this course, because you've got your family issues, you've got your work issues, and then you throw in this course as well. So you're going to have to be good time managers to get it right. And it's about prioritising, delegating, etc. So it's your response to controlling events. So they're the 5 major events. Some events you do have control over, others you don't. And there's sort of events we cannot control, like you couldn't control the weather. Yesterday it was raining, today's a beautiful day. But you've got no control over that at all. You can adjust to it, like I had an umbrella yesterday, but I didn't need one today. Things we think we can control, or think we can't control, but actually we can. If you're in a traffic jam, you can control that, can go another way. Don't necessarily, you have to find another way out of it. Events we can control but don't, and this is to your personality type. We talk, maybe you procrastinate, maybe you find it hard to make decisions. But you can control that. And we think we can control but we can't, like a bus arriving late. And there are events we can control, such as our own behaviour and interaction with other people. And that's important. Okay, there's a biological clock in you. We all have a biological clock, and the way you live your lifestyle either speeds or slows that clock up. So you've got basically a time clock in you that's going on all the time. You normally sleep when it's dark and normally awake when it's light, and so forth. But the way you live and the temperature, the meals you eat, if you have a big meal at lunch, you'll feel sleepy in the afternoon, etc. So the way you handle stress, the neurochemicals are running through your body, etc. will all muck around with that biological clock. So there's a nice quote from Peter Drucker. The common factor that all successful people share is they know what is important and that they know where to spend their time. So they prioritise, know what's important and concentrate on those things. I know you've heard of the 80-20 rule. Who said yes around here? You going to tell me what it is? No. Yeah. And usually find like 20% of the students get the good get 80% of the good marks, and 20% of your staff will give you 80% of your problems. So it's an 80-20 rule, and that's learning to prioritise and get what's important. So time management is your personal productivity, getting things done, dealing with tasks. And there's 2 different types. There's a monochrome, which is a linear task, and then there's a polychrome type, which is a multitasking. And the latter are better at handling disruptions and are more creative. And you've got to establish habits that are hard to change, etc. Okay. This is an interesting quote, and we're going to look at this in more detail in a moment. But basically, if you're a manager, and if you aren't already one, this type of course will lead you more into management positions. You'll spend half your time in meetings. Okay, about half your time in meetings. And we'll get you to look at it. And most meetings, to put it shortly, are a waste of time. You can use your time better. And we'll look at some techniques to improve that. You'll spend about 20, and You have more time in scheduled meetings than unscheduled. Yet the unscheduled, the important ones, you run into somebody in the street. Don't just say hello, have a talk to them. How are things going? You'll learn more in those unscheduled meetings than any scheduled formal meeting. How are things going? Where do you need help? And good, successful managers walk around a lot and have those informal conversations. So that's an important one to remember. So if you meet somebody in a lift or walking in the street, don't just say hello and move on. Stop and have a couple of minutes talk with them and ask the right questions. You spend a lot of your time behind your desk, about 6% of your time on the telephone. Some people spend more than that. About half your time, working time in offices, and a quarter of your time in other people's offices. Okay, so that's a general allocation. Now we're going to concentrate and have a look at this top one mainly, the meetings one. Because that's one that, especially as you go more and more senior in the organisation, you have to go to more and more meetings. Okay, with meetings, these first lots are agenda linked. Okay, so have an agenda with time limits to each item. So that if you're only allowed 10 minutes, and when you hit the time limit, the chairperson has to say, you have a choice. If we keep on talking about this topic, it means we'll miss out something else. I find that's very powerful to give people the choice, because common sense prevails, and I normally say, move on. I was asked to chair a meeting in Melbourne that basically they said, we have a problem with time management, can you come and help us? And it was in the banking industry, so we had people with fairly big egos. Excuse all due respect to my banking friends, but they were, and they said, we run over time with a meeting, can you help us? Now, the meeting started at 1 hour late. They said, how are you going to handle that? And I said, I'm from Queensland, we don't have daylight savings, so we've still got an hour up our sleeves. But I said, the only rule I have as to help you is that when a person is repeating herself or the argument is going round in the circles, I will let you know and say you have a choice. You keep on doing that or move on. And I only had to do it once or twice to say the conversation is spinning wheels, you're not getting anywhere. And they cottoned on very quickly and actually caught up that 1 hour they lost. But that's just one simple rule, that if the argument is going round and round in circles, I'm going to pull you up quickly. But putting time next to things is important. But give the people, don't get too dogmatic and say, it's time up, stop. Just say, you have a choice. If you're going to keep on this one item, it means other items will suffer. And common sense prevails just about all times. Let's move on. And if we have time, we'll come back to it at the end. Okay. And schedule a time for any items that are raised that are not on the agenda. Say, okay, we'll discuss that next time. That's not an agenda item, we'll discuss that next time. Unless it's a real urgent issue. So the agenda is set beforehand and any new issues are put down for another time. As one of the groups said, send out agendas, reports, briefing papers before the meeting so people have had time to read them. It's a waste of time to hand out reports in the meeting because that people means they have to spend time to read it and understand it. Send them out beforehand, ideally a couple of days so they've got a chance to read them. You send out a week beforehand, most people forget about it. So make sure only about a day or two beforehand so it's still fresh in their minds. Only discuss items that are relevant to the whole group. If an item just amongst two people in the meeting, say, you people go and discuss that separately. So only make sure items that involve the whole group are being discussed, everybody. If it just involves a couple of them, say, you go and sort it out. Now, this is an interesting one. I've only just come on this recently. That to stop groupthink in meetings, you should ask people to write their views on every agenda item before the meeting. Just to write it down, what their views are. Because quite often if somebody's more assertive, that will sway the meeting. By you doing that, writing your views on that item, and don't make it into a PhD thesis, just a couple of dot points, and say, these are the points I think are important. It'll help you remember, and also help you counter the people who speak first. If you speak first, that tends to dominate the conversation. And also the way your brain works, if it hears something first, it tends to believe that more than other things. So remember, that's not a powerful one. And if you even go one step further, quite often you can get all those bits of paper, people's ideas, and use that as a bit of a summary, etc. But to stop the group think, because if you have dominant people in the thing, they tend to push their views, and other people will tend to follow them. Okay, start the meeting on time. As one group said, they locked the door. Doesn't matter half people missing, just start it. Some people even have a clock at the meeting to work out how much each meeting is costing. We've been here half an hour, our wages are so much per hour. This meeting has now cost us so many dollars, and we're discussing a thing that's only worth half that, or a quarter of that. So we're wasting the company's money. A process, and those who attended the course in the diploma will remember the 6 hats way of thinking. We'll talk about that in a moment. It's a good process to run a meeting or look at different items. And somebody's role, probably the chairperson, to make sure you're keeping the process under review. Develop an agreed to action plan, which one group mentioned. Now, to help your brain think properly, it needs regular breaks for food, air, water, etc. So you've got to recharge your brain. We'll talk a bit more about that when we come to learning. If nothing discussed in the meeting, don't have it. No, if you normally have a meeting every Friday afternoon and there's no issues to be discussed, cancel it. Don't feel you have to have meetings. Any controversial topic, keep to the end. So otherwise, if it comes up first, it'll go all meeting. My wife's got a rare autoimmune disease, so I joined the local committee to help with issues. But everything I brought up was a bit controversial because they were pretty set in their ways. So I always made sure I was the last speaker at the very end. And usually the meetings have gone 3.5 hours, 4 hours, and their brain was saying, enough, we just want to go home, we want to go home. So they just said yes, yes, yes to all my things because they wanted to go home. Worked very well. If I brought them up at the start when their brain was fresh, they would have given me a hard time. A lot of it was pushing them into social media and using those things, etc., which they weren't familiar with, etc. So you can be a bit cunning if you know the issue. When people are a bit tired, bring it up because just to get through quick, they'll say yes, yes, yes. Okay, other things. Vary your method of presentation. Don't always just do it the same way. Never hold meetings early in the morning. Always hold them at late afternoon, ideally about 5-10 minutes or half an hour before the end of the day, or hold them on Friday afternoon, not Monday morning. Monday morning they'll drag out as long as people can. You hold them at 5:30 on Friday afternoon, and you're not finished, I'll say 4 o'clock and your finish time is 4:30, it will finish at 4:30. Okay, so always hold them in the afternoons. Specify a day for meetings on issues so that people know if they have a problem, it might be on Monday they've got the problem, but it's not till Friday that's discussed. And a lot of times they'll solve it by the time it gets to Friday. But if they know they can hold a meeting any time on something, they'll hold it. And only have the appropriate people there. If after a while they're not discussing issues relevant to you, can you excuse yourself? Just say, this is not doesn't affect my division or my area. I may as well go, or send somebody who's more appropriate. Don't feel you have to go to the meetings. Delegate it. Have adequate sleep before meetings, otherwise you'll turn off your mobile phones. That speeds up meetings. People get very nervous if they can't have their mobile phone on. They want a quick meeting because they want the mobile phones their contact with the outside world. They want to know what's going on. So just so no mobile phones are allowed on. Video conferencing, which one group is that reduces the travel time. And I think the police, I don't know whether the President Commission does it, but the previous one did it. Used to use video conferencing to talk to all the stations, all the commands or what it was every Monday morning. Don't dwell on the past. You can't change the past. There's some chance of changing what's happening now and the future. So make sure you don't dwell on past things. Don't spend too much time most successful organisations I know, these are in senior board meetings, don't look very much at the past, at the results, because they can't change that. You can learn from it, but you can't change it. You really want fast meetings, make people stand. After a while, they start a bit uncomfortable. So there's some suggestions for you. I'm not saying they're all going to work in every situation, but just realise you, as you especially become more senior managers, will spend more and more time in meetings. And I was actually just talking to Jim McMaster when you were doing exercise, and he said when he was dean of this faculty, I think it was 24 committees he was on. So he just would have run from one meeting to another, basically, etc. And when I did work for Boeing, they had 28 committees, just Boeing in Brisbane, 28 committees on looking at quality, one topic. So it is like a disease in some ways in an organisation. So you want to find ways of reducing their time. And that then frees you up to work on other things and probably more important things. Okay, so the 6 hats is a process of thinking, and I've got them across here. This is not bad, a good way of looking at problems. People from the diploma course can remember the 6 hats? Have any of them used them? Dare I ask? Because I did teach it to organisations like TFL, and 5 years later I went in and they're still using it. You have the white hat, which is get all the information about the topic you're looking at. So, and the power of this one is everyone is using the same thinking hat at the same time. Because how often do you go to a meeting and you're looking at an issue and somebody's going to be against it, and so that's all they're thinking about, what's wrong with it, what's wrong. You're not allowed to do that. When you're looking at the information hat, the white hat, you're thinking, what's all the information we need to have about this topic? Do we need to get more, or do we have them? And it's factual stuff, it's not feelings or what your thoughts are, it's factual information. That's why it's called the white hat. Then the next one is the red hat, and that you don't have to be logical or emotional. You don't necessarily have to follow in this order. What don't you like about this? What's your feeling? I reckon this is a great thing, or no, I just don't like it. So you don't have to justify it. That's the way your intuition is speaking. So that's using, get everyone thinking of the red hat. Next one is the green hat, which is saying, are there other ways of looking at this and other answers? Are there more alternatives? Creative thinking hat. And then you come to the black hat, and generally the black hat should not be used first. It should be used down this, because if black hat thinking gets going, the brain, as a survival mechanism, always thinks of the worst things. It's a survival mechanism. So use the black hat, don't use it first, because that will colour the thinking. What can go wrong with this? It's critical thinking. It's not really a negative hat, it's what can go wrong with this. Oh, we can't do that because it's illegal. Or hang on a minute, we tried it once before and we had these problems. So using the black hat. Now the yellow hat is what are the benefits of this? What are the benefits of the exercise? So that, and then the last one is the process hat. Are we going to the hats correctly? Somebody's role is to keep, and then bringing it all together at always the thing. So that's a procedure. You'll find if you use that in your meetings, you'll cut your meeting time down by 25%. After a while, you don't necessarily say, let's put the white hat on, you just say, do we have all the facts? And a few of my associates have used this very successfully in big organisations like TFL in Fiji successfully when they're looking at things. And even at the board level, one was used it. So I don't actually say 6 hats and say, do we have all the information about this? What do you feel about it? Do you like it or don't? Are there other ways of looking at this or alternatives we haven't thought of? What can go wrong? What are the benefits? And then have we discussed it? And you'll generally come out with a great, much better consensus of views, and will come out a lot faster. And these are based on Edward de Bono's thinking skills. They are now training 600,000 trainers in China in this thing. And one of the reasons our 2 boys went to the school they did in Australia, because they teach them this type of process of thinking. So it's very powerful, and the key is everyone's thinking. So that's a way of reducing your time and getting a better answer in problem solving and meetings. Okay, so we're running short of time. I normally ask you now to look at scheduled versus unscheduled meetings. How do you go to make them more productive? And as we said, the importance of the unscheduled meetings, you learn much more by running into people in the corridor or the street and having that 2-minute conversation. You look at the top managers, they walk around a lot, they have those informal discussions, just one for one. I did this when I became senior manager of organisation. I went to everybody's work site and sat with them and had a talk. And the board initially said, Bill, you don't have time to do that, you've got other things to do. I said, no, I want to hear their views and develop the relationships with them. So I went to their site rather than them having come all down to my office, etc. And there's some of the sites involve about 5 or 6 hours driving, like going from, say, Suva through to Allocation. Okay, that's another one, desk work. I know some organisations say you've only allowed to spend 25% of your time behind the desk. Other time you've got to be walking around or seeing customers and actually allocate days. Because with computers and all this type of thing, we get sucked into spending more time. I have my computer to see my emails is separate from my main desk I work on. So I have to actually physically get up and go across and look at my emails. Because the temptation is, and you normally have a ding, and an email comes in, you go straight looking at that email. And that interrupts your thought patterns and you can waste a lot of time. So that's why I have my actual computer that has my emails on it. It's a separate desk to my main desk I do my normal work on. And I try and look at my emails only 3 times a day just to know something urgent coming in. Morning, lunchtime, late afternoon. Takes a fair bit of discipline. I fall down at times because I hear a ding and I better see what that is, etc. But you know yourself, you can get sucked in it, and if you sat down and recorded the time you spend looking at emails and the number of useless ones coming through that aren't really relevant to you. Okay, so desk, be careful, and that's becoming more of a problem. Time on the telephone. I know some people now say, don't ring me from 9 o'clock to 11 because that's when I'm doing my work and this is an emergency. I'm available for phone calls after 11 o'clock. Otherwise the phone's ringing all the time. And so forth. And I even have that, don't come and see me unless it's really a life-threatening matter I need to know about because I'm doing this work from 9 to 11. So they get their work done first, all the stuff they need to, the important stuff. So there's some ideas. Working time in your own office, amount of time in other people's offices. So if we had time, we'd get you looking at these as well. So now we're going to come to how do you prioritise things and so on, which is important. This is a way I find very powerful. You put them in A, B, C's and D's. Okay, so everything you've got to do, you grade them into one of those 4 headings. And now, if you want to, you can break A's down into smaller headings if you like. And normally you put them in that type of quadrant. So you have up here vital, important, not vital, not important, urgent, not urgent. And there's just a bit of example of it. What I suggest you do is look at your next week that's coming up, because you've got this course, you've got your family, you've got your work, you've got maybe social responsibilities. Start looking at your next week and list the things you've got to do and grade them in one of those 4 areas. Okay? And I say that the next slide, it just sort of shows you an example of it. But think of the urgent tasks that are vital, that you have to get done, have to do quickly. Think of the tasks that are important but not urgent. Maybe you've got another week to do it, you don't have to know, and so forth. Just that made me think of something. Report writing. Who spends a lot of time writing reports? Yeah, most people do. Do you know how you test if your report's important?
Who reads them?
Yeah. Write it, but don't send it. Have it in a drawer, and if people start screaming for it very quickly, you know it's important. You pass it. A lot of reports are written, and you might spend a week, and you might have your staff helping you, etc. Because something happened 10 years ago, and they say now they want to report every month on this, and most of them just filed away. So if you really want to test, because if your reports are being read and are important, don't send it. Have it there, ready to go, so they yell and scream, oh yes, I'm sorry, I forgot about it, no, rah, rah. Or this one's important, next month I've got to make sure I do that one, but this other one, no one's talked about. I know guys who after page 16 write abusive statements in reports, because they reckon people after page 16 don't read. I know one country still hands out a report that's very bad about the country. First 16 pages say all the nice things, and after page 16 it says all the things that they wanted to say about the country, and that country still hands that report out as a good report. And with report writing, people like Winston Churchill would never read a report that's had a one-page summary. So if they can't summarise it in an A4 page, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, they have all the backup information behind if you want to follow it up and have a summary and so on. And if you're writing papers for politicians and cabinets, etc., to make decisions on, they tend to follow that sequence. No more than a page for what it's all about and what they've got to do and ramifications. If they want to know more details, you've got it backed up behind. But that one-page summary is pretty powerful. So there's some thoughts there. So have a go looking at your next week and list the activities and put them in one of those 4 columns, and it'll help you sort of sort things out. And include your things you have to do for your family. You may have to do some things for the community as well, and obviously you'll be involved in this course. You'll have your work commitments, work things. So have a go at just prioritising there. Just for the next week, just say, okay, what do I got to do? Plan it and work out what's important, and obviously the ones that are in this up here are the ones that should get top priority. Ones down there should get low priority, and it helps you prioritise things and get things right, etc. So it's a simple tool, doesn't take long. Okay, bit on goal setting. You set goals, you perform well. I gave myself a goal several years ago to get, I thought, which is the hardest company to work for in Australia, for an outsider like myself to work in? I thought it was Kerry Packer's organisation. Within 6 months, I was in there. And based on work from Harvard with students, Harvard Business School, etc., the guys who set goals achieved about 20% more than the ones that didn't. I used to do this with our 2 sons, set goals for the year. Only 3 or 4, don't set too many. I can remember one was to get, the older one, to get a distinction in a subject, and we all laughed a bit because he was bright but not that bright. And the other one was to get in the A's footy team, and I can't remember what the third one was. Now, one week, half the A's team was sick with some influenza, so he got a match in the A's team. And also, he did get a distinction in Japanese. So we rewarded him based on that, but we used to set goals, and only a couple, you don't want to set too many, what to achieve, and make them a bit stretchy so that you have to push yourself and so on.